but I love my country more. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Did we just witness a silent coup? Is this the path to preserve democracy? It feels like Joe Biden was pushed out of office only 25 days after his pivotal debate against Donald Trump. However, days before his resignation, Biden was vigorous on being the nominee for the Democratic Party, and there was no way he was going to be pushed out of office.
And despite that some folks don't seem to care who you voted for, well, guess what? They're trying to push me out of the race. No! Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race.
It seems like these words were hollow. Only a few days after that vigorous speech by Joe Biden, he resigned. Why? Did it have to do with his debate performance?
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Clearly, the power brokers behind the scenes no longer saw Biden as a viable candidate to win the presidency. Almost immediately, their media lapdogs were unleashed to tear him down.
Earlier this week that showed, a lot of Democrats, it's not just elected Democrats, rank and file Democrats, are both supportive of Biden but think he should not be seeking a second term.
I mean, Congressman Doggett kind of broke the dam by having this announcement today, saying that he was calling on President Biden to withdraw.
You could read the opinion pages today, influential, thought leaders who are Democrats, allies of Biden, who are saying, okay, he should bow out. They should replace Biden.
From actor George Clooney. Today, he is saying that he believes it is time for President Biden to step aside.
When power brokers, the so-called puppet masters, direct the media to target individuals they wish to destroy, it becomes a highly coordinated attack.
Sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things that aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
With Biden out, what next? Did the puppet masters already have a plan in place?
They didn't just find out that Joe Biden has experienced cognitive decline. They didn't just find out that the man has dementia. All of those people in the Democratic Party who were pushing for him to step down or pushing for him to not seek re-election, they've been interacting with him. They've been talking to him. They know perfectly well that the man has lost his mind, and they've been knowing that for 4 years, and they didn't mind. What it's about is that that when your own people, your own Democrats, your own liberals are making fun of Joe Biden online, on social media, on television, in the mainstream media, and so on, the man has become a laughingstock. That means that him winning in a rigged election wouldn't be plausible.
Is this an outlandish accusation? But here we have a former advisor of the CIA who predicted 7 months ago that Biden would be replaced prior to the Democratic convention.
Now, if you're a Democrat, and I'm talking about Democratic power brokers, because Democrats don't really believe in democracy. Democrats who rigged the elections, they ran Bernie Sanders off the road in 2016. They ran Bernie Sanders off the road again in 2020. He probably would have got the nomination both times if they had, kind of played fair, but they don't. So what do you do if you're a Democrat? Well, you don't want Biden. What I expect is the following: that Biden will actually run in the primaries, not New Hampshire, but we've been through that, but South Carolina, Georgia, Super Tuesday, he'll run in the primaries, kind of like the basement strategy we saw in 2020. But so some variation of the basement strategy, and rack up a lot of delegates. But then mark this down, next May or June, probably May, Biden will announce that he's not running. Now, that's not the same as resigning. I'm not saying he's going to resign from the presidency. I'm going to say that he's going to announce that he's not running for the nomination. No, he's not running for re-election. But he said, well, he's got all those delegates. Yeah, but he can release the delegates. That's the part people don't understand. Party will turn to the regular delegates and say, you got to get in line. And they will, because they're Democrats. And all of a sudden, you'll have a convention in July or August of 2024 that nominates fill in the blank.
How are these behind-the-scenes influencers orchestrating a covert plan to remove Biden from the election while preventing interference from other Democratic candidates and ensuring that their own chosen candidate takes his place? A. They needed to minimize Biden's interactions with both the media and the American public during his administration, especially during the DNC 2024 primaries, making him the least viewed presidential candidate in U.S. history. B. The puppet masters altered the DNC primaries to ensure Biden would not need to debate or make public appearances.
Well, you know, like I said, I think we're living in a period of our history, and it's really important to convince the American public that the system is not rigged against them, that we have a real democracy in our country. And part of having a democracy is that the public actually, the rank and file of the Democratic Party public gets to pick the candidate. It's not picked by the party like they do in the Soviet, or they did in the Soviet Union. It should be picked by the people. And
was RFK Jr. right? Are we seeing a Soviet-style election occur before us? C. Set Joe Biden up for failure before the DNC National Convention and after the primaries were over. Thus, the debate with Trump was set earlier than any presidential debate in American history.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Was Biden set up to fail on purpose? D. Force Joe Biden to resign and unleash the media lapdogs. E. Put in the candidate of their choice. Who would that be? Let's review an earlier video discussing the traits that the puppet masters will seek in their ideal candidate.
We need there to be some democratic plausibility to that win to make people think, either make people think that yes, they did, this candidate did in fact win, or you make such a convincing and coercive and manipulative narrative around that candidate that no one will admit that they didn't vote for that candidate. In other words, she's going to be the first woman president. Well, wouldn't you be ashamed of yourself if you didn't vote to break the presidential glass ceiling? She's a woman of color. Well, wouldn't you be ashamed to say that you didn't vote for a woman of color? Well, that would make you a racist. If you don't vote for her, then the only two reasons that could possibly be is because she's a woman and she's a woman of color. So that means you're a misogynist and you're a racist.
There's a third reason why they chose Kamala Harris for their silent coup. She is the only candidate that could access the $96 million that Joe Biden raised for his campaign.
The Biden-Harris campaign had $96 million as of the end of June. And because Harris was on the ticket with Biden, some campaign finance experts have argued that Harris has immediate access.
Step F. With the puppeteers nominee now chosen, they needed to create a media frenzy about their candidate. The first to take the stage was the Senate House leader, Chuck Schumer.
Since President Biden's announcement, we've seen the Democratic Party swiftly coalesce behind Vice President Kamala Harris. When I spoke with her Sunday, she said she wanted the opportunity to win the nomination on her own and to do so from the grassroots up, not top down. The vast majority of my senators quickly and enthusiastically endorsed her. So now that the process is played out, from the grassroots bottom up, we are here today to throw our support behind Vice President Kamala Harris.
Schumer says grassroots up, which is a lie. Kamala was handed the Democrat delegates by the puppeteers. She was not voted in by the people. Schumer was trying to spin a false narrative that Kamala was elected through the normal Democratic primary process. Step G. The puppeteers leveraged their power and influence to manipulate polls, presenting Kamala Harris as the savior of democracy. Suddenly, polls indicate Harris is leading in key swing states and emerging as the frontrunner for the 2024 presidential election. This seems odd, as in the 2020 Democratic primaries, Kamala Harris had one of the most unfavorable campaigns and was one of the earliest candidates to drop out. Now we are suddenly to believe that she is the most popular Democrat in the nation, even before she has been given the Democratic nomination. Step H. Now with the machine in full swing and the puppet masters fully backing Harris, it's time to get her the votes. How would they do it? Let's explore some possible scenarios that may occur in the November 5th election. Number 1. Technical loopholes. For instance, in Georgia, the ballot images from the 2020 election were not retained. This means there was no way to verify whether the votes were legitimate or illegitimate. This dilemma potentially flipped the U.S. Senate from Republican to Democrat. There were no laws broken, yet it remained suspicious. You would have thought that the law did not allow for this and that the ballots would not have been counted. However, this was lawfully permitted with no ability to contest in court. This is what we mean by technical loopholes across all states. Number 2, executional issues. In Arizona, the implementation at the polling sites seems suspicious, since the ballots were too small for the scanner to read, forcing in-person polls to close for long periods of time. This disenfranchised a core group of voters in the Maricopa County. Due to this being an executional error, again, no laws were broken. Number 3, software vulnerabilities. Here we have a video showing how voting machines can be tampered with.
You want to cause chaos in a democratic country. What's an easy target? How about the voting process? Some experts say it may not be so hard to do it in this democracy.
In every single case where a U.S. voting machine has been analyzed by competent security researchers, they have found vulnerabilities that would let someone inject malicious software and change election data.
He says up to 18 states still plan to use voting machines like this one, the AccuVote TSX touchscreen, or other versions like it.
I brought one here with me today, in fact, and we're going to conduct an election. The way that works is election officials prepare that on a PC somewhere and copy it to the machines using removable memory cards like this. Election officials are going to put it in the machine like this before the election. But what our election officials don't know is that I, the attacker, have already infected that memory card with malicious software. Here are our candidates. George Washington or Benedict Arnold. Okay, so we have one vote here for George Washington. So we have 3 votes for George Washington. Oh, a narrow victory for Benedict Arnold. 1 vote for George, 2 votes for Ben, because the malware I inserted on the memory card has stolen the election.
In the United States, every single state independently controls how it conducts elections, even for federal office. Some outsource the programming of voting machine data cards to private vendors.
Well, here's a vendor that did the election programming for a large fraction of my state in 2016. Here are lots of nice high-resolution photographs of their warehouse in case you want to break in. So if I wanted to break into this company, let's say I was the attacker, I'd probably start by forging an email from, let's say, Larry, the president here, to Sue, his administrative assistant, asking her to urgently open an attachment.
That malware could now spread to memory cards via PCs throughout the firm's network.
This is something that you hear all the time in the US from election officials. Unfortunately, it's not actually true. Those election management system workstations sometimes are connected to the internet, or the data that's programmed into them passes through an internet-connected system. This is a pattern that's being repeated again and again in political conflicts across the world. It's only going to get worse.
It is our hope that these technical, executional, and software vulnerabilities are addressed to ensure a more secure voting process and to prevent the puppet masters from rigging the election. Well, why are they doing this? Why are they trying to disenfranchise the voters and subvert democracy? Perhaps they're trying to save democracy, but not in the way you think. The goal is to destroy our democracy to save their democracy.
The question that we're raising is, who actually rules in this country? Is it the American people who get to decide by their vote who represents them in the government? Or is it the permanent bureaucracy that has accumulated so much power? It is a contest of how we think of our democratic system. And I'm of the mind that the people should decide, not the bureaucracy. And this is a contest where Democrats are saying essentially, we have to destroy democracy in order to save democracy. Democracy has very different meanings in the two usages in that sentence. We have to destroy democracy as we've traditionally known it, electing a president through a vote of the people, in order to save democracy, which is ruled by expert opinion, ruled by the bureaucracy.
What does the silent coup mean? The ability for the puppet masters to maintain their control by limiting the common citizen's influence within government. The impact of this will be the fall of our democracy and the rise of theirs. We as a nation have done so many things to empower the people, and now that is being stripped away. We got rid of the poll tax in the 1800s. We had the suffragette movement so that women could vote. In the 1960s, we had the Civil Rights Act so that minorities would be represented in our government. It seems all these efforts no longer mean anything if we let the puppet masters dictate the system against us, the common citizen. Paraphrasing T.S. Eliot's poem, The Hollow Man, Eliot claims our democracy will not die from a big bang, but a whimper. If we stand by and do nothing, we will lose our republic. So let's get up and take control of our nation's fate. Call or email your representatives about ensuring integrity in our elections. Volunteer in any way to assure our election goes right, and make sure to vote. We at TVM believe the vote matters more than at any other time in our nation's history. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more upcoming content.